Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, strap in, because this might be the hardest video I've ever had to make. Generation 2 introduced 101 of some of the worst Pokemon known to the world. And somehow, I have to whittle that number down to just the 10 worst Johto Pokemon. And just like before, I'll mostly be considering their main story viability in the Johto region, but if a Pokemon has a competitive history, I may give it some bonus points. Number 10, Misdreavus. Honestly, Misdreavus is a fine Pokemon, especially now that it evolves into Mismagius. But the problem with Misdreavus, like many Johto Pokemon, is its location. Misdreavus is kind of like a luxurious mansion that's located in the middle of a war zone. Okay, that might be overselling it a bit. Misdreavus is like a haunted mansion from the 1700s being located in a war zone. Being only found in the Mount Silver Cave in Gen 2, it ties with Larvitar as the latest possible catch in the game. And at least Larvitar can be trained to become one of the strongest Pokemon in the game. In Gen 2, Misdreavus is just like, yay, finally, a ghost type. The same issues could be said for Murkrow, who is like a counterpart to Misdreavus, especially since it too can only be found in the post-game, but Murkrow at least gets a relatively early Pokewalker location in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, so if you preserve this incredibly niche artifact from 2010, first of all, sell it, they're like really valuable right now, or you could feasibly use a Murkrow for your Johto adventure. But Misdreavus gets no such treatment. Yes, it does get moved to the Johto Safari Zone in the remakes, but the Dusk Stone is oddly gated from you until the post-game, making this change relatively meaningless. It's so weird. Why is Heart Gold and Soul Silver completely fine with giving us stuff like Yanmega and Mamoswine in the main story, but anything that evolves with an item is treated like a taboo? At the end of the day, even if you do pick up Misdreavus at the Safari Zone, you're still stuck with a bad ghost type that only offers one winning matchup against Will in the league. But then again, Murkrow just does that, but better. It's also worth noting that in recent gens, Murkrow has a surprisingly stacked VGC resume on its side, which is why he gets to dodge this list while Misdreavus suffers. Number 9, Sneasel. A great Pokemon in the modern day, made even better by Weavile. So why is it here? Simple, it is probably the most screwed over Pokemon in the Johto region. It's a Pokemon built to be a glass cannon physical attacker, but unfortunately in Gen 2, both of its types, Ice and Dark, are exclusively special, forcing Sneasel to piece together a moveset of very underwhelming non-stab moves. Like Misdreavus, it is only found at Mount Silver in Gen 2 at the very end of the game, and while Crystal moves it forward to the Ice Path where it always should have been, the game's mechanics still make it a relatively useless Pokemon. And then, Sneasel gets screwed over again in the remakes, as Heart Gold and Soul Silver move it back to Mount Silver without any opportunity to get it early via the Pokewalker or the Safari Zone. For a remake that improves almost everything about the original Johto, this has to be the most bafflingly stupid decision in the entire game. Simply put, Sneasel has no reason to ever be used in a Johto game, and while Weavile is absolutely fantastic, it literally can't help here since Sneasel isn't even able to evolve until the Battle Frontier opens up. Number 8, Corsola. Every generation has at least one water type that just can't seem to keep up with the crowd, and that's exactly what Corsola is to Gen 2. Corsola is meant to function as, well, a really delicate tank. Two words that really shouldn't go together, as its rock typing pretty much erases any benefit that its somewhat okay defenses were giving it. And since Corsola isn't available until getting the good rod in Olivine City, it's far too late to the party to be sponging any hits with those stats anyway. Look, I like Corsola. It's a cute, charming design, but it's just that, a flavor Pokemon, and nothing more. A rare encounter to help make the gotta-catch-em-all process just a little more tedious. There's a reason this Pokemon gets jumped by Mareanie in Alola and wiped out by climate change in Galar. It is simply not built for this world. Number 7, Shuckle. Look, I'm gonna be honest, the only reason why Shuckle isn't lower on this list is because it can at least tank some hits during a Nuzlocke while you heal up the team. It's a great sacrifice Pokemon if you need one. Oh, and there's that whole thing about how Shuckle can do the most damage of any Pokemon with a whole bunch of shenanigans. Yeah, I knew somebody was gonna bring that up in the comments in defense of Shuckle. Bro, you know nobody is letting you do this in a real match, right? I'm convinced that Game Freak made Shuckle for no reason other than it funny. In recent gens, it has at least made a name for itself in the lower tiers of competitive play as a decent stealth rock and sticky web setting lead, but that's pretty much the only area where you'll see Shuckle succeeding in life. As a main story Pokemon, there are few worse than this one. Number 6, Magcargo. Similar to Misdreavus, Murkrow, Sneasel, and Houndour, in Gen 2, Magcargo's pre-evolved form Slugma can only be found in the postgame, which is unfortunately late. Luckily, Heart Gold and Soul Silver did add a method to get Slugma early, as it can be obtained as an egg in Violet City just by answering Primo's questions correctly. And if you didn't choose Cyndaquil, this is the only Fire-type Pokemon you'll have for quite a while, which matters a lot in Johto's early game, which is filled with Grass and Bug-type Pokemon. Unfortunately, Slugma doesn't stay useful for long though, as it's incredibly slow and frail. A deadly combination that makes this Pokemon borderline unusable for Nuzlocke. He ain't even good at jumping on the grenade like Shuckle is. Give me a break. And it evolves extremely late to level 38, which is like the retirement age in Johto. The league starts at 40. And after evolving, it gains the Rock typing, just giving this unfortunately slow Pokemon even more glaring weaknesses. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the video, definitely consider subscribing, especially since this is a series. We still have 7 more regions left to do, so don't miss out. It's free. Number 5, Ariados. Ariados is a super slow, super frail Pokemon with many weaknesses. Based on that alone, it would qualify as one of the worst Pokemon in any region. But what makes Ariados so much worse is how it is absolutely no help with any Johto Gym or Elite Four. Bug and Poison beat a collective 0 trainers from this region. The best usage you can get out of Ariados is that it learns Shadow Sneak at level 19 in the remakes, so if you need the cheese Morty, you can maybe do that. It's only ever been useful in the absolute depths of competitive hell. Like, sure, he's mildly useful in Gen 3 NU, but like I said about Lickitung in the Kanto video, if you're digging that far down, you've dug too far. Fact of the matter is that Ariados is one of the most outclassed Pokemon by modern day competitive standards, and it is next to useless in a Johto playthrough. It even evolves way too late. Having to use Spinarak until level 22 is just the nail in the coffin. If it maybe evolved around 15, it could feasibly be decent in the early game, but it's just not. Number 4, Sunflora. It's no secret that the Johto region is more aggressive towards grass than Antarctica. Heck, most of the reason why Meganium has as bad of a rap as it does is because of how stacked this region's boss battles are against grass types. But among all of Johto's underwhelming grass types, Blossom, Jumpluff, Meganium, none even come close to being as bad as Sunflora. For starters, Sunflora's stats are as horribly balanced as it gets for a grass type with tons of weaknesses. Its abilities are next to useless. They seriously gave this thing chlorophyll with only 30 base speed. Who was working at the office that night? It literally only learns normal and grass type moves by leveling up. It also evolves from Sunkern, the former weakest Pokemon ever by base stat total before Wishiwashi came along. And the only way to evolve it relatively early is to win the bug catching contest, which bug catcher Benny somehow always wins with his stupid Caterpie. Tell me this contest isn't rigged. Sports betting has tainted everything. But if I haven't convinced you yet, just remember that Sunflora loses to Morty, loses to Jasmine, loses to Price, loses to Claire, loses to Will, loses to Koga, loses to Karen, loses all the money in your pocket, and definitely loses to Lance. Number 3, Delibird. Ah yes, as one of Pokemon's original gimmick Pokemon, Delibird is truly one of a kind. In all the Johto-based games, Delibird only learns Present by leveling up, a move that can only be described as frustrating at best. They have given it Drill Peck as well since Gen 6, but at that point the gimmick is done. Just give this man a proper learn set. But even if you do go out of your way to waste your TMs on Delibird, its horrendous stats ensure that you won't be getting anywhere fast. The only reason why Delibird ranks 3rd on this list is, first of all, yes, Johto is just that bad. But also, if you want to burn your Icy Wind or Blizzard TM on Delibird to help with Claire because you're stuck with it as your Nuzlocke encounter, it could maybe do something in that fight. Maybe, I'm not guaranteeing anything. I wouldn't know because even when I have been stuck with Delibird in a Nuzlocke, I haven't had the guts to use it. Number 2, Ledian. Do you know how much of an accomplishment it is to outrank Delibird? Like, it shouldn't be possible, yet somehow this average, ordinary, non-gimmick Pokemon somehow did it. They said, hey, let's take this Route 2 bug type, give it an evolution that happens way too late to be remotely useful, give it the move pool of an offensive physical attacker, and give it absolutely nothing in any stat except special defense. Because we all know how great bug types are at being walls. Iron Fist as a hidden ability feels like throwing a penny to a homeless person. Like, yes, technically he's better off than he was 5 minutes ago, but functionally, nothing has changed. Ledian also somehow has an even worse matchup spread against Johto's type specialist than Sunflora does. Because Sunflora at least beats Chuck's Poliwrath. It gets its 5 minutes of fame, Ledian can't even get 5 seconds. This is genuinely maybe the worst non-gimmick Pokemon ever made. I say maybe because Gen 3 is coming, you'll see. And just like before, here are some dishonorable mentions before we reach number 1. First up, Aipom. Yes, I know. Aipom does have Ambipom in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, a much needed upgrade to a pretty bad Pokemon. But it can't be overstated how genuinely obsolete Aipom is in Gen 2, simply because Furret exists. Furret has equal or better stats than Aipom in every department. Furret learns way more moves than Aipom, and is available earlier in the game than Aipom since you can't get access to Headbutt until Ilex Forest after your Sentret should have evolved. Again, Ambipom is the only reason Aipom doesn't make the list, since it's one of the few Gen 4 evolutions allowed in Johto. Isn't it weird that Dunsparce hasn't been mentioned at all yet? Yes, Dunsparce was one of the biggest memes in Pokemon history until the Dunsparce came along, who is, well, still kind of a meme. But truth be told, Dunsparce is far from the worst Johto Pokemon to pick up and use. Between Serengrace, Body Slam, Headbutt, and Bite with a relatively respectable HP stat, it's like great value Jirachi or Togekiss. It's not the worst Pokemon to get stuck with in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Tyrogue, and honestly all of its evolutions deserve a mention too. Tyrogue can't be obtained until after you've gotten Waterfall and the 8th Gym Badge, as you have to backtrack through Mount Mortar to get one. It's level 10 and will require 30 levels of grinding just to be usable in late Johto. Good luck. And for your troubles, you get to lose against Will, Koga, and Lance. And do sorta kinda okay against Karen, who really doesn't even use that many dark types. It is so much effort for such a mid Pokemon, regardless of the evolution. But hey, it is usable, which is a lot more than I can say about many Johto Pokemon. We also have to mention Smeargle here. With its gimmick being that it copies whatever move it last saw, Smeargle is one of the most unusable gimmick Pokemon in the main story, but what saves Smeargle from the list is how much more broken this gimmick is in competitive play, where you can basically give Smeargle all the meta's best moves. It may not be practical for the main story, but this Pokemon is undeniably successful and competitive. So of course, the number 1 worst Pokemon from the Johto region, once again, there's really no suspense to this, it's Unknown. Sporting only one single attack, Unknown is the literal definition of a gimmick Pokemon. A Pokemon meant to bring mystery and intrigue to the game, but not be functional in battle in any way, shape, or form. Although, it does have 28 forms if you feel like wasting your time catching them all. That's it! I literally can't even say anything else about Unknown. I would love to give some big analysis like I did for Sunflora and Ariados, but like, I literally can't. It doesn't do anything. Like, sure bro, you got Levitate, you can dodge an Earthquake. Whoop-de-doo, look at you. Anyway, that's gonna wrap things up for this video. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the Hoenn video whenever it drops, leave a like, and I'll see you guys next time.